Welcome to my channel. I'm JD, and today we're going to look at how to make a watch setting. This is a pocket watch setting. The challenge here was the setting is a raised setting. It's a gold setting. This is the original here on the bottom, and the jewel was cracked on this setting, and burnishing out the jewel, half of the burnishing, or pushing out the jewel, half of the burnishing material came off the back. It was so thin it was impossible to punch it through to replace the jewel. Plus the new jewels, the Seats jewels that you get, which are new old stock, they're not curved like this jewel was. This jewel was like a little volcano fitting in here. So in my previous videos I said, okay, there's some options here. One was to actually go inside of this setting and try to square out the side walls, but I wanted to do another adventure in how to make a setting. So I went off and I did a brand new setting for this watch, and this is the setting right here. And as you can see, let me just grab this with my tweezers, and this other setting might fall off, but as you can see, I rounded the edges of it as well, just like the old one, and the only difference is it's made of shined up brass, so it's not gold, but you really can't tell the difference at a glance. And it's got a Seats jewel in it, and it actually, if I turn it around here and have a look at the back end, it's in there really nicely. This is it right here, and I was able to burnish the material over that setting quite nicely. Which way do I go with my camera? Over here, and there's the jewel there, and a little shine off of it. So in this, you're going to see me do all the lathe work in here. And like I said in my very first video that I made of doing this kind of work, start off with the stock and don't cut it down to size for the plate until near the end. So, and I'm doing some very, very fine work to get this setting to look exactly like the other ones. So, so please enjoy my video, and if you like my channel, just hit like, and please subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumb up and subscribe to my channel. There you go. I'm really rough today. I need to shave. I'm a Wolfman. I'm a Papa Smurf, whatever you want to call me. Anyway, this was a hell of an adventure. I think this video is a great reference video on how to make a proper jewel setting of this type. This is a very difficult setting to make. It's not your normal flush setting. It's extremely difficult. So please enjoy the video and give me lots of comments. I like the comments, and I'm pretty detailed on my work. Including the use of cross slides and some other things to clean out the inside of this. So this is my last series of how to make a jewel setting. So shout out to my buddy Bori. This is his ball pocket watch. It's still up to him whether he wants me to fart around with the existing gold one to see if I can plop a jewel into that one, or is the one I made good, and it's up to him. The good thing about the one I made is he can tell people that the setting was handmade by a watchmaker. Handmade, not some factory made wound out setting. And as you know, if you've got gold teeth, I got one in the back, the cost is in actually fabricating the tooth. It's not the gold. So so there you go. So enjoy the video, and I'll stop talking. Thanks, bye. Alright, let's get started with the final jewel setting cutting work. So I started again because I made a few mistakes the last video I had. So first of all, when I cut the jewel last time, I did trim the material first, and I said in my very first jewel cutting exercise that I wouldn't do that, and I did it anyway. So that's just a momentary lapse and stupidity. So this time I promised not to do that. And then the second thing I did was I didn't size or do the proper cuts for the jewel on the end here. So if I put this jewel up here, this is a jewel setting, the previous jewel setting, the one I'm trying to replicate. And really what I need to do is cut this all in one shot, just like when I'm cutting a balance staff. Why am I cutting this off, putting it in a chuck, and then chucking it up and then trying to cut the top? I can cut this in one shot and then try to measure it while I'm cutting it, so I get the right sizing of this thing. So So I'm going to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is re-drill my hole, just make it deep enough, like I said last time, so all failures can be replicated. All failures are wonderful. So I already have a centering hole here that's left over, so I'm just going to use that and just drill right into that and go fairly deep into this. And I've got my jewel this time. Again, I've pushed this jewel onto some pegwood, and the jewel is it's a 3150. So it's a Seats 3150 jewel that I'm going to be setting in here, and I'll be cutting the burnishing material before I actually size the piece of metal to fit the plate in the plate. So let's just get started, and I'll stop yammering. So we're going to just drill this out really quickly, and I'm not going to bother showing all the drilling out. I'll just show it to you when it's finished. Alright, I'm near the end of the drilling here. I just want to make sure that all the shavings are out of the hole, or as much shavings as possible out of the hole. So I'll just do a little bit of cleanup on the hole here. So I'm pretty deep, I believe, so I think I'm good. So I don't need to go more deep than that, I think, although I'm going past that end point, so we may have a little bit of an issue there. So I'm just going to go a little further, just so I can shave it off, cut it off, and not have to worry too much about it. It's funny, my upper camera is bouncing around a bit, and I'm not sure why, because it's not touching anything. So it must be the frequency of the motor. I think that's good. So there you go. So now I'm going to get rid of the tailstock. I'm not actually going to get rid of it. I'm just going to move it because it's a great little tailstock. It's got a micrometer on it as well, which is kind of what you want in a tailstock. Brush off some of the filings I have here, because there's no need to have a sloppy shoppy. So there we go. Sloppy shoppy fixed. Fixy wixty. And now I just need to face this off. So I'm going to just set my tool rest up and grab my graver that I'm going to use for facing this off. And it needs to be a little bit up, I think, and over, a little tiny bit up, like that. And so I'm all set up now. I just want to face this off so it's a clean start for making this setting. So this should be pretty easy to face off. Let me see. Just going to get a little bit closer here with my goggles. It's French for goggles. If you believe that, I got land in Florida, swampland to sell you. It's the morning right now, so I had one coffee and I haven't had a second one, which is probably good. I really should have my tool rest a little closer to the piece, but it's soft metal, so I'm not super concerned about catching it, although I might. And I just love these gravers. They're carbide tip, so there's no problem. So now when I finish this off, flatten it. I want to make sure I'm past that line. Okay, I think I'm good there. And there we go. So that's finished off now. And now I'm going to grab my the bit that I had sitting in the drill bit, and just see how far that goes in, so I know how much material I have to work with. That should go in pretty far, I think. Yeah, that goes in nice, and that goes in really far. Twist that out, and because the jewel won't go too far into this hole, I'll just clean out the tip So now I have my piece here. So now I have to grave out the piece for the jewel. So this is a tough part, because this is where you fail a few times and you keep cutting until you succeed. But you have to line up your tool rest and try not to hit your camera. So line up your tool rest, and then just so it's in a position to cut. And like I said before, I made special tips to do this with. I got down in my Frankenstein lab, and I used my polishing machine that's got I can also use it to cut metal, and there we go. And this is the bit I use now to cut into this. So I got to raise this up just a bit because it's not going to work. So let me just turn that over and then raise this up a bit. And I just need to be kind of in the center of this piece right about here. And angle just a bit upward so that it cuts. And I think I'll just give a final sharpening of this with 2500 grit diamond plate. Alright, I made another tool. I had to go down and recut this so it's got the right angle. So as you can see, it's going to go into this bit here. I marked the top black, but it's going to go into this material this way, like that. And I sharpened it with 2500 diamond grit paper. So, or not paper, steel plate. 2400 bit diamond grit steel plate. Now I don't want to cut too much away, so I'm going to just sort of eyeball the jewel here and see how much material that we want to move. So it's not a lot of material here, just a bit. Kind of eyeballing it here. I'm not sure if there's a better method of doing it. And this time I'm going to do this by hand, so this is going to be tricky. So I have to stabilize my bit, and I have to have it in this position here, and I have to have it completely vertical with the piece. So I'm going to cut right here and go in just a bit. There we go. And that's a good cut there. Now the question is, did I take too much material off or just enough or what? Okay, that's too much. As you can see, there's end shake here, so when I cut this the next time, I have to make sure I don't take so much. So I'm going to face this off again and just start again. Now, let me just try this again, and now I know I don't have to take that much off. So I'm just going to take a little tiny bit off this time. Right about here. I had a bit of an angle there on that, so I may have to take a little more off, I'm not sure. So that's so close. Look at that. That is so close. That is a nice fit, and it's very close. I'm going to just see if I can trim a little tiny bit more off of this. Here we go. Just hold your breath, folks, because it's going to be nerve shattering. Let's have a look at that. See if that does the trick. Yep, there we go. That's in there nicely, and it's in deep as well. So I'm going to make sure if it's not too deep. And the walls look good. I just have to take a little tiny bit of material off of that because it will be a little bit too deep for this. So just going to remove the slightest bit of material. So this is where you can screw this up because I want to leave enough to do the burnishing. So I'm just going to lower the rest here just so I can be more accurate with the amount of material I remove. And then test that again. That's really good. It's going to give me maybe a little more lip than I need, but it's pretty good there. Yeah, I'm going to take a bit more off. Just a bit. Because you want the jewel to sink in and leave enough lip for burnishing over the jewel. Try that. Just a touch more. You don't want too much burnishing material because it won't work well. Cut a bit away here. It's a game of trial and error. There we go. That's perfect. It's just a bit of material to burnish over. Right there, so you can see the way that goes in. There's a little tiny lip there, so I got to make sure that that's cleaned out nicely. And I also want to make sure I've got enough depth in that, so I can I just put the drill bit in there again and see how far back it goes. All right, just going to dump the drill bit in and see how far back this goes. I probably can take the base in. No, yes, maybe. No, I'm going to take the drill bit in here. So that goes back that far. Just that far. So that should be adequate for this. So that's good. Now the jewel fits nicely. Like that. Now I've got to make a lip. I took a look at this here and I just need to flatten the edge out a bit so it's flat. Make sure I still don't have a problem here. I don't think I touched the other side. So that's good there. Okay, now I've got to make the material, the lip basically that goes around here and allows me to have material to burnish over. So this is the tricky part. So this tool I made here, I just took another piece of carbide round steel and I got it very, very, very sharp on the tip. And this side here has got to be, right there, has got to be a 60-degree angle. So if you're looking from the top, you've got like a, not a 60, say a 30-degree angle. So it's an angle this way, and then it's more or less flat on the bottom side or the right side. So on the left side, I've got myself an angle, and on the other side, it's relatively flat. So I've got to make sure I find the exact right position for this burnisher to hit. and I want to, or not burnisher, this graver to hit, and I want to be back far enough that the rounded part of the graver is actually hitting the tool rest, so I don't have that issue. So that's probably really good right there. And now the eyeballing comes in place here, in play. So I've got to eyeball that material and just take enough off to deal with this. Just enough material to leave me a lip to burnish over the jewel and not too deep. So this is the hardest part, I think, of the whole thing. So I want to be close to the edge here, but not quite at the edge. So I've dug a trench, a very, very small trench, and I'm going to put the jewel in, and I'm going to determine whether that trench is deep enough. So there's the jewel in place to wrap over that jewel. I think I need to dig it a little tiny bit deeper. And the deeper you dig it, the more strength it loses. So to make sure the tool is facing the right side here, and I just put it right where the groove was before, and then start digging. So that should be deep enough. It's actually easier to do it by hand than it is to use a cross slides. Feels easier anyway. Okay, there's the jewel in place there. And I'm going to make sure I fasten that jewel down nicely so I don't lose it. So I want to clean the hole off just a bit with a paintbrush, just to make sure there's no residual metal in there that might cause the jewel to go in sideways at all. That's pretty good there. And I'm just going to put the jewel in again and have another look to get all of the angles right. To make sure it's in there nicely. It's funny, it seemed like it went in. There we go. Well, it's deeper now. I think there's a bit of a bevel on the jewel there, but that'll, when I burnish it over, that should help. That'll make sure the bevel stays where it is. I'm not sure what the other end of this looks like, if it's squared off enough. I think it is. Just put that in again and have a look. It looks like it wants to stay, so I may just let it stay where it is. I've got to make sure it's all the way in before I start to try to get the material over that jewel. So I'm just gonna see if I can push it in a bit with this staking tool here. And it seems to be a little bit of a angle on that, just a tad. So So I think I can, I think I'm gonna, maybe I'm gonna press this out and look on the inside of it again to make sure it's absolutely flat. So I had to take a little tiny bit more material off the inside of it just to make sure it fit properly. And the jewel is sitting in there, but I'm going to cut away a little bit of material here, just a bit. And then I'm going to cut the tunnel again just a bit more, so I know that's going to cover the or that'll cover the jewel. That should do. And just to make sure the jewel is in place and flat, I put the stake in there and just make sure that stake is as close to flat as I can get it. There we go. Now the burnishing. So I'm going to burnish this jewel in place. A little bit of oil on it, on the burnisher, and looks like my oil has turned black. It's black oil. So what's happened there is that I got a little bit of dirt in the end of my oiler from oiling the lathe earlier. So I'm just going to clean this oil off a bit. And just put just a dab of oil on the end here, because I want this to be a smooth operator. That's the words of Sade. And I'm going to get in close as well, and just make sure that this burnisher is in the right position. So I want it to be just at a slight angle here to push in. Starting to round off the hole. Move some oil in there and clean off the end just a bit. Hopefully the jewel doesn't pop out. The jewel, I think, wants to pop out. And then I'm going to make sure that jewel is still in there flat. Like so. Look in the hole. Make sure it looks fully decent, half decent. And then put the burnisher in again and start moving it inward a bit more. It'll try to slip a bit, but just hang on to it and it'll be fine. Now it's covering that hole nicely. And I'm going to just do a little bit more here. Again, I'm trying not to let it slip. Now clean off that hole. Get rid of any metal that's left over in there. And I want to see if the jewel is actually sitting nicely. Looks like it's not too bad. Then I've got a my stake here, and I just want to push the edges in a little more with the stake, so I can just put a little pressure on it and move the edges in just a bit. And I might be able to just tap that as well. It's not too bad there. So that is pretty darn good. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. And now I just have to remove the additional material on the outside of this, because I'm going to just basically flatten the end piece here a bit, or face it off, as they say in the world of this stuff. I'm also going to take my toothpick and see if there's any movement in that jewel at all. No, that jewel is in there good. It's probably in there better than any other jewel I have. And I'm going to get a big flat stake and see if that fits on the end here. Yeah, it does, not too bad. And I'm going to tap that just a bit with a hammer. And I'm talking about really, really light. So tap that ever so lightly with a hammer on the end to just give it a uniform feel over the edges. I probably could use a bigger stake. I can use a stake with a hole in it. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to put my glasses on to find the bigger stake. So, glasses on, bigger stake. I just need a stake that's not too big, not too small, just the size of Montreal. Alright, there's the stake. Hopefully this is not too big and not too small. Is that too big? No, actually that fits in there. So there's the stake in there, so I'm just going to tap this. If you don't tap it too much, there's a chance of cracking the jewel, and you don't want to do that. So there we go. That's just going to flatten out any material that's at all loose on the edges of that job. All right, now now I'm just going to cut back any material here that's part of this. So I'm going to move my tool rest around so it's a little bit more in position to just cut the edges a bit. Just let me make sure this is fine here, like this. Like, that's pretty good there. And tighten this up. Tighten the tool rest on the bottom. Make sure you always keep this nice and tight. And then I want to cut it right to where the burnishing is over the jewel. And when I cut it, I'm watching the opposite side to where I'm cutting, so I know when I'm getting close. And when I get close, I don't want to have the graver over where the jewel is. I want to have the graver where the rim is. So I have no chance of cutting the burnishing away. And then just check it for flatness at an angle here. And that, my friends, that is perfect. So there we go. So now it's flattened out, and you can see the jewel just sitting in there nicely. Now I'm going to cut for the plate size. So I've got my plate here, and I recall from the last time I did this, time 2 I think it was a 22. Now I have I have my other I made a setting for this yesterday, and I have the other setting in here right now, I think. Yeah, so I got the other setting here on the top. As you can see, I'm going to push that out because I'm going to be replacing that with a better setting. So I'm just going to push this out onto my desk and start over, because I love starting over. So this hole is a 22, so I don't want to go over that or under it. So, and right now I believe it's a 27. So I get my Deuxième gauge out. So this is, and this, what I'm doing now, I believe is the best and proper method, and it follows the book. So here we have a 30, and I've got to move that down to around a 22. So time to take some material away. Also, I can look at the existing setting here and just kind of eyeball where it's going to be. It's going to be right about there. And then that setting is going to taper a bit. So I don't want to go past a certain mark. So I'm going to just put a mark on this. I can mark it with my graver. It's probably a better idea just to put just an ever so small nick up with the graver on there, just so I know where it sits. Let me see how I do this. I got to bring the old setting up to this again. I think I did this before by just putting the old setting, sticking it on the back of the tool rest. Because it's on Rodico, you can kind of form it nicely, and then bringing it up to the existing one like that, just to allow me to eyeball this, and then you can rearrange it a bit, and now my hand is free actually to make that mark. And I'll make it with the point of my graver here. Let me get this a little closer and just form the Rodico a bit. And just to make sure the Rodico can sort of bend towards the part. And now when I have this stuck on here, just stick this on. I know it has to go down a bit like that. Not too far down. And stick it on like this, and then I can just move this Rodico around till it's close to where the part needs to be. There, that's about as close as I want to get it, and I can smudge it around a bit. I'm smudging it right now. There we go. So that's the Rodico, and it's setting the part up next to the shaft I have here, or the piece of material I have here. So I know that the old part, or the part will be about this big here, so I want to make sure I have enough room to cut it off. So I'm going to cut it, I'm going to make a line way over here, so I got tons of room. Alright, there's my line, and now I just move this out of the way so I don't lose it. And I want to shave this down to 22 and put the plate on. So let me square my tool rest up here. Move this back a bit. Try not to hit the camera too many times. And move this back again some more. See if that's good enough. Let me see, is that good enough where it is? Yeah, I think that's not too bad because I got a little bit of the graver sticking out here. It's a little bit close to the collet for my liking, so just move it out a bit. and that's going to be cutting where halfway up, so I probably want this to be up just a bit more, maybe right there. Let me just tighten this on the bottom, tighten this on the top. Now is that going to be good? I think so. That's not too bad there, so I can start cutting away here. This has got to go down to 22. Stop the video and restart it so I don't, in case I snag it. Alright, we're back in action here. Now let's just move a bunch of material. And when you're using your graver, you look at the back of the piece, not where you're graving. And I always put it at just a bit of an angle so it doesn't catch. And again, measure it a lot. Measure 5 times, cut once. So I just flip it back and then put the scale up, measure it, look at the scale. I'm at 27 right now, and this is a deuxième scale, so when I say it's 27, it's moving up to around here on one side, and then the other side, of course, is just pinching like that. So this is a great scale, by the way. It doesn't take much time to work it, to use it. So, and then I just keep measuring that hole. So you know that I know it's got to be 22, but just make sure you're not taking off too much material. So just bring the part up a lot and remeasure and remeasure. And so I'm just going to cut it away, and I'll come back when it's close. So now it's starting to fit, as you can see. So I just have to just fine tune my cutting so I don't take too much off. Because as it starts to fit, you can remove a lot of material all of a sudden, and then you're kind of screwed because you've gone beyond where you want to be. So I just have to be very careful. And then you just need to just start fitting and trying and fitting and trying until the darn thing fits. So that's kind of a little bit tiring, but that's how you do it. So there we go. That's actually not too bad right there. Now I don't need to look how far it goes into the watch. I see that's perfect. So that, my friends, is a perfect fit. It's in there, and I believe it's snug. So I'm just going to steady my camera here and is it snug? I think it's snug in there. So as you can see, just rotating it once, it's snug. So that is a perfect fit. So now I've got it fitting perfectly, and I know that the jewels in this, they curve above the plate. So that's the tricky part for me. Now I'm going to be very careful when I do all my next cuts. So I know that the plate, I think if I put a little bit of black on the inside of that jewel, I put it on, then it's going to allow me to see how deep it goes in, because that's kind of fundamental to making this work properly. So I need to take a little bit of marker here and just put it on the inside of the plate on the hole. And hopefully, to do this fast, so I'm just using a marker to clean that off later, but if I do this and I get it in the hole, and then I just push it in as far as it goes, it needs to go, which is right about there, and hopefully it leaves a bit of a mark on the plate, on the material, because it won't leave a mark beyond the material, I know that. And let me just clean this up just a bit too. And let me see if I got a mark of any type on that material. Yeah, I see a mark right here. So that's how deep the plate goes. So I want to make a very, very tiny mark with my graver right at that point. So I want to make my mark right here. Yeah, I think that's where I need to make the mark. I'm going to check the other setting though and see how deep, once those settings are burnished in, they're fairly flat. So the setting looks like it comes down just a bit on there. So I may just cut back a little bit of material because the setting looks like it dips down a bit, then it goes in. Kind of like that. And then that would mean my mark is up by the same amount. Right about here I think is safe. Probably right about there. So, and now now that I have a mark on here, I'm going to put the setting back in again. So now the setting is actually, the jewel is a little lower in its setting than it's supposed to, than it would be normally. And that's so I could fit it properly. So there it is there. So that's set in nice, and so the mark is actually down just a bit more. Yeah, the mark's just down a bit more. So knowing that, I've got to make the slope now. So this is the tricky part, is making that really nice slope. So now to make that slope, I've got a rounded, this graver on the very tip, it's round. It's like a castle. So if you look at it this way, and the tip, that graver in this shot here, right on the end here is, I'm gonna look in here how to do this. Right on the end here, that's kind of round, and that allows me to round out material here. So, and it's a carbide graver bit, very round, or just a bit round. I have the old setting here, so I'm not going to screw this up like I did last time. I want to have a look at the old setting and see where this thing starts. And the old setting is just before the line, but it's very close to that line. So I'm looking at the old setting and where that is. And then the rounded part is just slightly sloped downward, so it's not too far away. The slope's not too far away, and it doesn't go down much. Before I did it and I made the hole, or the top part, way too big, or sorry, way too small. It looks stupid. So here I've just got like a 60-degree angle or something going downward, so I got to very carefully see if I can cut that. And this is the tricky part, so stand by to stand by. So for this piece of artistry, I'll call it, I decided to flip my camera view so you can see it really close. And I've got my piece right here, like this, and it's going to go in here, and I know that once this is in, it's just inside that line, and I've got to slope it ever so slightly downward. And my master is here, right here, so I've got to basically cut it the same way my master is cut. And so I'm going to just, it doesn't have to, you don't need much material to match this. So there's what it looks like there. And so I don't need much of a cut here to get this down. So I'm going to cut it and then flatten it. So I've got to get the angle right. And I'm going to use the right graver here for this. I'm going to use my number 4, which is a 4mm graver. And I'm going to ever so carefully cut right around here. That may actually be enough slope for this. Right, there we go. That might be enough slope for this particular piece. I'm just wondering whether I can remove some of this material here. I gotta flip gravers because I need a very small, another small graver here to maybe my four flat might work on here, and because I want to flatten that out now. And it's going to be tough. So let me just flip to the other graver, and this is my 4 flat graver right here. I don't think you saw that, but I'm coming back in 2 seconds here. I'm just going to leave the video run for a second here. So, and then I want to flatten it out and then have a look at. Yeah, this is 4 flat, and I want to have a look at what this looks like. Just going to get rid of some material here. There. So now I want to compare that to the existing setting and see what this looks like. I can go a little bit deeper, I think, on this. I'm just afraid. That's all. Just very afraid. Yeah, I can go down a bit more on that, I think. A bit deeper on this. So let me get my rounded graver again and be very, very, very brave. And I'm going to come at it with a bit of an angle here. Let me look at that now. It looks pretty darn good, actually. And coming at it with an angle gave me the nice slope that I wanted. So that's actually it's almost perfect. Yeah, that's almost perfect. And when I finish, I'm going to leave it at that, cut it away, because I can, when I flip this around now in the I flip this around, then there shouldn't be it should actually I should be able to put it in the jewel chuck and then yeah, put that in the jewel chuck and then finish the end off. Maybe I'll take just a bit more off. It's always just a bit more, isn't it? So I'm just a bit worried about taking too much off. Well, this is my flat one, so let's just get rid of the material here. And right about there. And I think I just cut this thing away here. Let me get the existing jewel out and have another look. And make sure I'm not cutting too much material off or anything. Let's see, right about there. And there, so that's not too bad. I think I'll cut this away now, see if I can cut it away and not, I gotta be careful doing this. I'm gonna use my number 2 round, which is really good for cutting off the part. So I'm going to flip these around, and this is a 2mm graver rounded on the end. So It's I have a 2 round, a 2 flat, a 4 round, and a 4 flat, and they're absolutely necessary for making balance staffs. So if you're going to make balance staffs, this is how you do it. So I'm going to cut this away. That way I'll be able to finish this part off later on when I flip it. So I'm just going to cut it right around here, I think. It's grabbing a bit. If you're using the graver here and it grabs, just let it go. And also turn the graver at a bit of an angle to approach the material. There we go. So that fell off. I gotta go find it. Alright, there's the part there. And the jewel on the end. And then I've got it tapered a bit. And I'm just gonna have an eyeball that taper to see how drastic that is, but I gotta fit that into a jeweling collet now. Alright, this is the do or die, trickiest part of the whole damn job, I think. I'm going to face this off first of all. I'm very close to the end here. Maybe if I just grab this, and what I want to do is get this up a little bit out of this jeweling collet, if I can. Maybe before I face that off, I'll try to jog it out. So, put the setting in the collet, jeweling collet. Then I take a stake and a hammer. There's my hammer and my stake, and flatten it out. Just tap it ever so slightly, and then test it to see if it's good or not. So that sort of worked. I think it's good now. So I'll tighten this up and then face it off, and then start working that end. Alright, I'm going to face this off now. And I'm going to look at the master here just to see how thick that end part is. It's really not that thick. This might be good enough right there. So I need to get rid of some material on the end itself. I need to just chunk off just a little tiny bit of material here. Right there. Now the other thing I want to do is widen the hole. So if I take the existing piece and I just put it over the top here, I can tell it still needs to be tapered down just a bit. So I need to use my round 4mm. That's my 2. There's my round 4. Need to use my round 4mm graver at an angle. Take this down just a bit more. So let me set this up, lower this a bit. This is going to be tricky as heck. Try not to hit too many cameras. And I want to take this down just a bit, but at an angle. And I got to make sure I don't take too much off. I'll end up in the same situation I had before, which was too much material. And Yeah, I'm going to switch to my 2mm round one, which is my last very fancy dancy 2mm flat. I'm not sure, did I do 2mm round already? Maybe I did. Yeah, there's my 2mm round. I need to take off a bit of material here to round it out, right on the inside here. There we go. That's nice. And I'm going to just flatten it, take off the end just a bit, and then see where that leaves me here. And bring up the old piece here and have a look at what that looks like. First of all, I want to know how much material is there. Man, that's so close. I think there's a little tiny bit of a lip on the end that I can probably remove. It's a little bit of lip right on the end here. I want to get rid of that. Just like that. And then I'm going to look at this again and get rid of some of the smudge the end here to get rid of some of that leftovers. And let me just fit this on and see what it looks like. That is right on the money. I can actually cut that back just a bit. Yeah, it's a little too wide. I can cut it back just a bit. Right now I'm like at wit's end with not wit's end, I'm at nervousness end. Here we go. Let's cut back just a bit. And I got the slope there. And let me measure that against the old part. And that's pretty darn good. I think that's right on the money. So now I want to widen that hole. You can see how wide that hole is there. I want to widen this hole as well. So I got to be very careful the way I do this and figure this one out. So the problem I have in widening this hole is there's not a lot of room between the end of this jewel. So I look at this closely. So if I get the jewel right there, and then I've got the end here, there's not a lot of depth in there to allow you to widen that hole. So this is like very, very tricky. So I'm trying to enter that hole from an angle, right? So I'm just going to stick my flashlight down here and see if that helps me brighten this up a bit. There. So I can see that a lot better, but I still have that problem because if I may try to taper it to widen it. It's going to be a bit different than the other jewel, but it's a little safer to do that. Let me just move my stuff around. Move my stuff around. So this is a scary, scary part. And I just don't know what tool to use here. So if I use this tool in the back of it, like that. And I can cut away at this and perhaps backwards. But still not ideal. I want to be able to flip my whole lathe around so it's left-handed to finish this off. But I'm a bit reluctant to do that as well. So I'm just going to see if I can get it at the right angle with the back of this graver. I know if I put the graver upside down like that, it'll tend to cut better as I come at it at that angle. So if I just do that and then just try to come in at a very slight angle. I don't know, this is kind of the other thing I can do is take my cutting tool, this one here, I already sharpened the edge here, and then come at it on this from this side here and try to cut the rim on it. So I'm going to turn the flashlight off because it's not helping me right now. Man, this is a frustrating part. This is frustrating for sure. Because I think I know what to do, but I'm having a hard time thinking of how to do it. So this here coming in like that with this part, upper part rubbing, but I don't want to cut any material. So I think I'm going to get the cross slides out and see if they help me. Alright, so this is the bit I'm going to use, and you can see the very tip of that bit has got a little knobby on it, and I'm going to put that in my lathe and line that up like that, and then see if I can, with my cross slide, just move that back ever so slightly. So that should do the trick. And these are just hardened steel. So let me just set this up in my cross slides. There, I think I have it all set up to cut, so I'm going to have a look at what this looks like when I start cutting it. So I'm just going to move this way here, it goes out of the way towards the center. And I'm going to see if this actually will cut for me. So that did cut. That did cut in. So I'm going to back this off and have a look at the result. And I may have to just slightly trim the edge here because it looks like there's some residual here, right there. And clean that up a bit. I think it's widened it though, considerably. It's not bad. I'm going to leave it like that. And I'm going to put my tip over tool rest back on here. Alright, here's what happened in this part of the video. I had already cut on the inside of the jewel setting and realized that even though the wall width was perfect, I hadn't cut it deep enough. So I said, you know what, this has got to be perfect or it won't look like the other settings. So I went about to put the cross slides back on, and I had actually modified the graver on the cross slides to get inside that jewel setting. And then I said, let's just fix that wall again, and there's that little tiny finger on this on the graver. And I redid the darn thing on the inside so I can get deeper in there and make it look, the walls look as deep as the old one. That's what happened. Alright, I widened the rim on the inside, and I'm going to get my favorite burnisher again and see if I can just smoothen that inside out just a bit. So I'm going to put some oil on it again, and so it doesn't stick, and then rub that on the inside edge and see if that makes a big difference in its smoothness. I want to get this side, the pointed side, on the inside without affecting the outside rim. Not too bad. That looks rather nice. It's hard to tell. Let me just use a flashlight on this thing and low, just point it away maybe a bit. And so what I've done is taken the rim here and taken this here, and I've just put it on the inside here and then rubbed it just to give it a nice, I guess rubbed in, but rubbed feeling. And I did notice as I cut more material away on the outside that there's just a little tiny bit of stuff left here. So, and I want to get rid of that because that's going to look ugly off. It's going to look ugly and off. So I'm just going to see if I can just tighten this up a bit and just touch the edge here and smoothen that out. There we go. That's not too bad there. And I'm going to take a cloth here and just, I want to get this caught up in the lathe, of course. And get a little bit of Rodico on the inside to clean it, the inside of that jewel that's in there. And we just there we go. Just put some Rodico in there. And this is dirty Rodico, but it's not, for this kind of stuff, it doesn't really matter. Nothing came out that time, so there we go. So I think it's done. Let me have a look at this now. And now for the finishing touch. So I took your typical drill bit kind of polisher, and I basically polished the crap out of the end of it. Or I cut it down so it could fit inside the jewel, and I'm going to see if that makes a difference. Not too bad. I'm going to just clip the end off it here and see if it's there we go. That way it's probably going to get the sidewalls more. I think that's going to be it. I think if I do any more, I'm wasting my time. So we'll just leave it at that and have a good look at it. Alright, there's the old setting on the left, and it's a new setting on the right. So it's not a bad replica of the old one. So just turn this sideways if I can. Not sure if I can actually stand this on its side. I may have to oh, that's not too bad there. And then stand this one at side, same way. And there we go. That's pretty darn good. There, I darkened the video a bit so you can see the two. And now I'm just going to push them over here, and we'll see what they look like. Just push this one over here. That's the back, and there's the new one with the jewel in it. So that looks pretty darn good. I'll see if I can get a close-up on this now. Alright, what do we have here? This is another close-up I've got, and let me see if I've got the right size here. So this, we want to show the back of the jewel setting. So there's the new one with a jewel burnished into it, and this is the old one. And then if I flip this over, this is the front of the jewel setting, or the top side, and I slowly flip this over, and there's the top side of the new jewel setting. And then I'll just do a side by side on these things here, if I can stand these up without too much problem. There's one of them there. I'm gonna have to see if I can get under this. And there's the other one. So that's standing next to each other. I'm going to see if I can get it a little bit closer with the zoom here. I think that's about as good as I can get it, folks. So that is, put a little shadow on it maybe. There you go. And you can see the edges there of the old one and the new one. So it's pretty darn close. Let me just push these over now. There's the top of the new one, and there's the top of the old one. So excellent, excellent setting. And if I look at this, this is the watch movement plate that will get this jewel setting, and the jewel setting will go in the back end. So it'll go very carefully here, move that around. The jewel setting will go right in there. And you remember I made a black mark there. I can remove that mark without an issue and put that setting in there. So if I push that in right now, what does that look like? And there's the setting in the watch, but not screwed down. So it's just sort of sitting there. I think it's just a tad higher than the other settings, just a tad higher. That I could take that down without a problem, and I might do that. But it's just a tad higher than the other settings. But other than that, it's a really nice setting. So let me have a look at this. The angles. It's all about the lighting and the angles. So there we go. There's that setting closest to my thumb on the end, my dirty thumb. And if I look at the back part of that setting, let me look at that back part. Can you tell which one is the new one? Probably not. The new one is the back one. So the new one is this one here. You'll be able to see the jewel hole for it. I can see it, but you can't. There, that's not a bad shot there. So that's the new setting. New setting is this one right here, and that's where the red mark was because that whole thing needed to be replaced. So that's I think it's a thing of beauty. I think it's a thing of beauty. There it is there. And let's just line that up a bit. And there it is there. So still a little bit of a few little black marks here from when I marked it so I could figure out the depth. But other than that, that's I think a pretty darn good replica of that setting. I even got the angle, a little tiny funnel kind of thing happening there. Took a lot of work to get that thing going. So, and I don't think anybody would notice this setting. Now the big difference is that the old settings are gold, and this setting is brass. It's shined up brass, so it looks a lot like gold. And I think at a glance, no one is ever going to notice that that setting is not gold. So it's up to my buddy whether he wants me to leave that setting in there and screw it all together, or does he want me to try to fart around with this setting here and widen the back to drop a jewel in and then try to burnish one in. I can do that as well. So we'll see. So that's the video. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit like. Thanks a lot, and have a good day.